I've known you for a long time,
Yeah.
and I've had the opportunity to see you every few years. We get like a nice little check in, and it was so nice this week watching you, and you were killing all week. And then
Oh,
we go
thank
to
you.
record the special on Thursday, and you had another gear in there, which a lot of comics don't have, and I think it has to do with your theater background.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a cheat code with stand-up comedy.
Well, I think people don't realize how much you can do without your words because this is an art form of words, right? So because we write and that's the medium, you forget how much you can do without speaking. And so I think the acting kind of comes into that of like, I can do so much. I can get them with me with just my face and let them know where I'm going with it so they see not to take it harshly or so that they see, that I'm being vulnerable with them while I'm being terrible with what I'm saying, So
Right, yeah.
it's that sort of extra little level that you get when you're used to acting.
Is this a skill that you applied on purpose when you started doing stand-up, or did it come naturally? Did it just kind of bleed
I
in?
don't I
And
don't think I don't think it was purposeful. I think it's just how I talk. I think I'm just
yeah,
I feel like I just am always trying to get everyone with me, right? Because I feel like what I'm saying might be left, very far left of what people probably
Right.
think in their heads is true. But if you follow me there, you'll get why I think it. And even if you don't agree with me, you'll be like, I don't agree, but I see why she thinks that. I see where she's coming from. You know what I mean? I feel like that's the understanding that I want. I don't want anyone to have to agree with me, but I want them to see why it is that I have chosen this little filter to sort of see the world through.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And you are connecting in a way without words. I mean, your first few moments on stage, there are no words. You were just staring at the audience, and you have them right away as soon as you come out on stage.
Oh, you're
It's
sweet.
it's,
Yeah, well, look,
it's incredible to watch.
It's one of those things that I think doing a lot of bar shows and things like that teaches you. I've always been a road dog. I've always been on the road a lot. And early in my career, that was bar shows. That wasn't, man, playing a comedy club was like, whew, that was upper level. That was like, what? People are there for laughs. Oh my God. I'm
Yeah.
playing in sports bars where they're turning the TVs off for me to even go on, and that's making people mad. I'm
Yeah.
already starting at a deficit. So I have to be real funny real fast. And so you pick up. How can you do that? How can I draw everyone's attention in without having to scream at them?
Yeah.
And usually that's just with a big happy sort of a blank stare of, well, here we are.
Yeah.
and everybody starts looking and being quiet and not sure how to take it. And, now everybody's giving me their attention, and now I can proceed.
I think you nailed it there, because a lot of times when you have heckler situations happen, a lot of people want to just get louder or angrier, or they want to outdo the heckle. And I think you go the opposite way. I'm in the school of like you get quieter,
Yeah,
because
you gotta,
people
you
really
gotta
pay
transmute
attention.
it. You got to change it and flip it on what it's doing. So if you can do that, that's when you're going to be successful with a heckler, because just trying to sort of
Yeah.
yell them or something, that's
Yeah, so you're
that
treating
doesn't go
you're
well.
treating every crowd as if it is a rowdy crowd already. You're coming out and resetting the room
Yes.
with that energy of like,
Yes.
nope, this is what
Right.
we're doing now.
And I feel like I also have to do that because I so often work with very strong features. I don't I think what's sort of the hidden skewer of this job is that you don't get to hang out with a bunch of headliners because you're on the road and they are too. And so I hang out with a bunch of openers and features and I'm very lucky to have gotten to work with very strong openers and features. And I'm at the level now where I say who my openers and features are going to be. So I'm working with these guys who are really strong and really funny, and girls who are really strong and really funny and really at the top of their game. And so I feel like I do have to come out and top that. There's something when you're the headliner, you need to come out and really announce your presence with authority, as they say. Just sort of really, sound your barbaric yawp, get it out there, and really take command of the stage because the person in front of you was doing that so well, just 5 minutes ago. So it's a skill that you either get funny or get out of the way.
That's so true. And I think that is a skill you pick up living in a city like Los Angeles or New York, in those bigger cities where you're talking about working with headliners and stuff. You're following Bill Burr on a Tuesday night, and you have to reset the room. You have to have that energy. You have to get the people on your side because, X, Y, and Z just fucking crushed. Mm-hmm. And now it's your turn. And you got 7 or 12 minutes to get these folks on your side.
Yeah. I literally I had to follow Arsenio Hall.
Oh my God.
and I was like, and he had a great set. Mm-hmm. And I got up there and I was like, man, y'all, Arsenio Hall just opened for me. Can you believe that? This is the greatest thing that ever happened to me. I can't even believe it.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to tell everybody.
Well, that's the same kind of energy here. When Brad's here and he's hosting, you learn real quick how to follow Brad.
Yeah.
Which is not easy.
No, it's not.
And you just kind of get thrown in the fire and you learn and it only takes one night and you're like, fuck, I got to figure that out.
Yeah, you know what? Somebody went on ahead of me. Who was it? Hold on, I'm going to think of it. George Wallace. I had to follow George. I think it was in this club. I think it was at Brad's club. I had to follow George Wallace, and I came out and I went, y'all, can you believe George Wallace is still alive? I don't know what to even say. It was, and people laughed at it, but I was like, you can't, Brad, what are you doing to me? What are you?
No, right? And I think what in those situations, the audience appreciates honesty.
Absolutely.
And if you were just to come out swinging, I've seen so many people make that mistake where they try to follow energy with energy, and that's not the answer.
No, the answer is to reset them to your energy.
You have to reset, and you have to be honest with them. And if a celebrity or a bigger name comes out and crushes, you have to be like, weren't they fucking great?
Yeah.
That was cool, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And then the room is yours. You can't try to be like, oh, I'm just the same as this person.
You can't pretend like you're not in the room.
Right.
You have to come at this show the way the audience is coming at the show. And while that person was on stage crushing, you were just an audience member.
Yeah.
Right?
And that goes for tragedy,
you have to
too.
kind of come at them like that.
If somebody bombs or something happens in the room, so many comics will either not watch the show, so many headliners don't watch, and you're like, that is...
I watch the whole thing.
That's a sin. You gotta watch the show.
I agree. Well, because there's so many times you can tag some of the unfunny things someone else said.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I had a kid opening on the road for me, and you know him. I'll tell you who it is later. But he used to do a joke about masturbating on the road, and he would always masturbate into a sock.
Uh-huh.
Okay, this was his bit. He masturbated into a sock, and so the joke never really got a big laugh, but I would come on after him and be like, wasn't he great? Oh, he's so great. And guys, we're sharing a room together. So many crusty socks, though, all over the place. Right. And I would tag it, and it would get a big laugh.
Yeah.
Because people would be like, oh, you just made it real because we heard him say it. So now we know it's true. He really is jizzing into socks. Like, you know what I mean? But they feel like they know something now about the reality of it. And that's what ends up getting the laugh sometimes. So you have to acknowledge what happens in that room. If somebody bombs, I watched a comedian do a show once and a light fell. A light fell. And this dude just kept going.
No.
I'm like, what? What's that? What? Like, I was like, this is either really brilliant or really dumb. And I ended up thinking it was really dumb. I thought that was an opportunity. Like, people were there's that, we all have attention about it.
Yeah.
Like, we're like, is he just gonna keep going? Is this just are we not gonna acknowledge that there's a light fixture smoldering on the stage? And he didn't. He kept going, and when he got off stage, I was like, listen, friend, I don't want to tell you what to do.
Right.
You're a boy. I'm sure you don't want me telling you what to do at all. But as someone who's been doing this longer, I just got to tell you, when a light fixture, look, if somebody yells something that
When
you don't
God
wanna repeat,
heckles
or
you,
there's-
you have
know,
to
then, yeah.
respond.
But when a light fixture falls, when there's something happens that we all see,
Yeah.
right? There was a video of, I think it was Paula Poundstone.
I love Paula.
She's doing a show and someone has some sort of event in the show. Like, I don't even remember what it was, and I don't want to say the wrong thing, but basically someone has some sort of medical emergency in the showroom, and she sat there and gave a play-by-play to everyone about we got the thumbs up, we got the thumbs up. Like she did play-by-play because the whole room, of
Right.
course, what are we going to ignore that paramedics are coming into the room, and but she's also trying to do a comedy show, like, and you have to think people must be going, is this part of the comedy? Like, they don't even know what's happening, and she's trying to say, like, no, ma'am, this is really happening. Yes, none of us knew, right? She's trying to do that and be a rodeo clown while paramedics are trying to, like, help somebody, and that is a comedian. That is what it is. That to be able to. That's why I've always, every time I do episodes of television, I'm always so amazed by the audience warm-up guy. Like that guy, and it's almost always a guy. I've never seen a girl. That's why I say guy. But I think women should and could easily do it.
Can women juggle?
I don't know. or do hypnosis. Throw T-shirts in. But I think what's funny is to me, it is such a specific skill.
Yeah.
To be able to keep people distracted and because that's all they're doing. They're the rodeo clown while they're changing the scenery or moving a light or going over lines, whatever the business of actually filming a television show is. That audience has to stay up and engaged and whatever, and that's what that comedian's job is. And when you see a warm-up comedian that does it right, I mean, it's magic. It's like watching. It's like whenever there was a clown in the circus when I was a kid, this French guy. He might still do it. He's a French clown. It was all regular clowns, and then this one French guy. I think he was Canadian, really French Canadian, but he was a French clown, and he was the star clown, and I just thought, man, that guy is so good at what he does. Even though I would never want to do. You could not ask me to be. I did warm-up comedy once.
Yeah.
For Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, when they were when the Olympians were the contestants, and they were filming it in Orlando, and I was living in Orlando, and they had hired me to do the audience warm-up. So I was so excited. I mean, it was like Oscar De La Hoya and Mary Lou Retton and FloJo. I mean, this Bruce Jenner. Like it was,
right.
it was
back
the
in the
OG gang. It was a long time ago, and the whole thing is just so. It was so hard. It was so hard to keep the audience engaged while they were doing, literal game show business, talking about lights and questions and buzzers working and all this stuff. And I'm trying to keep people like,
aren't we having fun?
You're trying to just do that. You're Waka Waka. You are Fozzie the Bear for some amount of time. And to do that with finesse and skill and still work material and get in jokes and I take my hat off to those comedians. I really do. That's to me the hardest job in comedy.
Well, you definitely have the chops to go off the cuff. I've seen it this week. I've seen it in the past with you. You're very in the moment when you're performing. You're very aware when you're on stage. What is your process like for not off the cuff? Like, what is when it comes to material, when it comes to writing? Are you somebody who goes and sits at a coffee shop every afternoon?
I never put pen to paper. That is not how I do it. I will write down the idea, right? Like I have an idea for the weed dispensary, right? And I'll just write down weed dispensary story, gummy bears and, cherry flavor. Like I'll just write down the three things that I need to remember.
Just the ingredients.
About the actual story. And then I bring my little recorder, my phone up on the stage with me. And I have to do it on its feet. I have to say it. I have to do it in the moment. I can't write it. And then when I say stuff that's funny in the recording, right, then I'll go write it, or then I'll go sort of put the bullet points in, make sure you say this to get to this. Don't use this word until you get to this part, right?
Yeah.
So when you're working out the kinks of it, then I'll put it on paper to sort of see it. But I don't write first.
Yeah, I'm the same way. It has to be on this feed. So I have an idea, I have bullet points in my head about where I want to go. I'll map it out in voice recorder when I'm on a hike or something like that. You're kind of talking to yourself, mapping it out, and then when you get on stage, you feel it out. And then
I listen to that before I go on stage.
Yeah.
And then absolutely. That's the only way I can do it.
Yeah. Have you always been that way, or is it something
Always.
Yeah.
Always.
When
I was in high school, I never wrote first drafts. I wrote the paper. There were no drafts. I thought about it. I took some notes, whatever. But when I wrote the paper, I wrote the paper. I never turned the first draft. That was just the handwritten version of the final draft, which was just typed up. It was the same paper. I'm not fixing it. There's nothing to, that part of the process wasn't ever my thing. I think now it is. Now I see the value in okay, it's really good now, but girl, you left a little meat on that bone. You could squeeze one more joke out of it. You can take one more turn. You can hit one more tag. And so when you start looking at it that way, then those things start showing up, and that makes it better. So now I know better than to just let the final thing be the final thing. But yeah, I'm not.
Yeah, I'm a big proponent in the idea of a joke is never done being written. There's
It's
always
like fashion. It's never finished.
Yeah, exactly. Look at this old sweater I used to wear. I can throw that in. But you find tags. You'll find an idea through your notebooks. And you're like, I could plug this in.
Or you say, I used to tell this story about blah, 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 and it had these two really great laughs it always got. Well, I don't tell that story anymore, but I could put these two laughs in this other story over here that I still do tell, and, and juice that up some. And so, the bigger story ends up eating the smaller jokes is what I always say. So
yeah,
you got to get it all in. you gotta make the people laugh. There have to, because I have never been a set up punch. I've always sort of told a story, and so when I go to do something where I have to curtail pieces of the story, or I have to take out pieces of the story, or that's when I have to start writing things down, because then I have to, okay, so now I'm going from this to this, so how can I, within some sort of story context, how can I, naturally, organically get from here to here?
Yeah.
That's when it goes on paper.
You're very relatable on stage. You obviously you're talking about a lot of worldly things, but you're also very personal on stage as well. And I'm wondering where that, or if there is a line that blurs a little bit, and where that started between opening up about your personal life into the relatable material. And
it's funny that you say I've never. When people say to me things like, well, isn't there a line there? I don't know. I don't. Yeah. I don't see lines. I don't think in the way of lines. I've always my whole life have just said what I thought, and sometimes it gets me into trouble, and sometimes somebody goes, well, thank you for just being so honest about,
Right.
I was at my mama's house about a month ago, and I found all my old scrapbooks. And I found letters I had written home from summer camp. They used to make us write letters. Every 3 days, you had to write a letter home when you were at summer camp. And I found this letter, and I posted it on my Instagram, but it said, Dear Mom and Dad, I'm having so much fun, but I can't swim because I have my period. But I'm learning to use tampons. I also shave my legs and it doesn't hurt. Okay, gotta go. But right? And I took a picture of it and I posted it. But it's just and all my friends are like, oh my God, you just said, Dear Mom and Dad, I started my period and I'm shaving my legs. And I'm like, yeah, it didn't occur to me not to say those things.
Right.
That's what was happening. You want me to write home and tell my parents what's happening? Girl, it's been a crazy summer. I am shaving my legs and I got my period. So, I mean, I don't think it ever occurs to me not to share those things. Now, are there things that I won't bring up? Of course. I've been dating people that are like, hey, can you not bring this up on stage, right? And I'm like, I mean, I'll try, and maybe I'll couch it in something else, or I'll make it about someone else. But
Yeah.
if I find humor in a situation, it's very hard for me not to use it. Very hard. And those are usually true situations, right? And people are like, but do you need to share? I'm like, okay, look, I can make it about something else. But this moment where we had all this tension and then you said this is too funny not to share with people. It's so real. And I think that's what the kind of comedy I want to do is the kind of comedy that I find funny. And what I always find funny is when someone does something and I go, oh my God, I don't even laugh. It's the things I find most funny. I don't laugh at. I go, oh my God, that's so true. That's what I say when they say the funniest thing I've ever heard. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh my God, ugh, right? Like I don't even really laugh. It's when things hit me that deeply. It's a, oh yes, 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 right? It gets felt. I feel how funny it is, and that's the kind of thing I want to recreate. And so to recreate that, you've got to open up. You've got to tell people that, look, I've felt these terrible things that you felt the same way you felt them. And here's what I did about it, right? I've had people die. I've had incarnations with mentally ill people. I've had incarnations with homeless people. I've had to deal with poverty. I've had to deal with success. I've had to deal with illness, parents, grandparents, all of the things that everybody deals with, I am too. And so why wouldn't I want to share the moments of humor that you can find in those things that seem so deep and dark and perhaps insurmountable? I mean, the way to get people to take in big things and big ideas is to make them laugh about it,
Yeah.
Yeah.